When I was about 14, 15 years old, I began to sense some sort of calling to be a pastor. And at the time, I was in a Pentecostal church. And so my experience of seeing a pastor was that this is someone who was extremely well-spoken, extremely likable. Everyone in that church was there because of him. To the point where when he changed churches, people followed him. So he had a very specific ministry, and he had these connections with the parishioners that were very much focused on his specific ministry. And when I began to sense this call that I should be a pastor, I thought, well, that means I need to be a really good public speaker. I need to be nice to everyone all the time. I need to have a magnetic personality, because that is how churches succeed. And that daunted me, because I am none of those things. I am a very flawed human being who's okay at some things and not so good at other things, probably like most of us. I have some gifts, but I certainly don't have, I would say, those gifts of extroversion. So my spirituality is a little bit different. And so for a long time I thought I couldn't be a pastor because everything in that Sunday morning experience came down to my ability to perform, to make Jesus present for the people through the quality of how I presented the homily, and what if I had good stories, and if I was very likable. And so I didn't want to become a pastor for so long, because it was just too much, it was too hard. And then I came to understand that there was a different way in which a pastor can function, and that really was that priestly role that I see in the Catholic Church, where everything in the holy sacrifice of the Mass is focused on the sacrament, the Eucharist. And as long as I can get up there and say the right words and say them somewhat reverently, then it's not me doing the work. It's a promise from our Lord Jesus Christ that if we gather, He will be there too. And so I try my best to give you a good homily and to be likable and to make sure I have more good days than bad days. But in the long run, it's not about me. We are gathering there, and we're gathering there because of Jesus. When I was an Anglican priest, I began to have these thoughts about becoming Catholic. I was very much drawn into the beauty of the church. I was beginning to recognize that this is the true church. I didn't have a quarrel with the Anglican Church per se, but it was more, oh, here's something where God is calling me into the Catholic faith. And for a long time I struggled with that, because I'm married, I have children, and of course a Catholic priest can't be married. And so I had to wrestle with this idea that God was calling me into the Catholic Church, but I might not get to be a priest. I might not get to be a pastor. And that was very difficult for me, because I had lived so much of my life being a pastor, and I felt very fulfilled in that role. And I still felt that call. So as a Catholic, or looking ahead and thinking I want to become Catholic, I definitely wanted to be a priest again. But ultimately for me, once I recognized the church, I needed to join the church. And if being a pastor or a priest is something that I had to leave behind, I was willing to do it. It wasn't an easy choice to come to, and I wasn't ready right away to be willing, but I came around in the end. So I became Catholic without any promise that I would be a priest. And even in those early years when it didn't seem as though ordination was something that we were moving towards actively, it's not as if I was ever told no, but it was kind of stalled for a while. I never regretted, even for an instant, having become Catholic. If you are a pastor who's really on the outside right now, and you're looking in and you're thinking more and more about it, but you're nervous or anxious about this idea, well, I've been a pastor for so long, and I might not have the same role if I enter into the Catholic Church. For me, it was always a question of reevaluating my identity. For so many years I thought, I am a pastor, that's who I am. But there's a far more fundamental identity, which is I am a child of God. And if the one identity of being a pastor has to go away, or if I can't take it into the Catholic Church with me, I'm not going to lie, that would hurt. That would hurt a lot. That's a huge sacrifice. But these sacrifices we make out of love, these are things that God really honors and God really blesses. And you never know what the future holds.